what's being missed in A&M and Texas? Texas, I think, is not being given enough love for the offensive firepower they could have in this spot. Okay, Arch Manning kind of finding his footing. He's catching touchdowns. He's running for touchdowns. He's talking his cash to the camera before they run in the tunnel. Like, since the Kentucky game, he's been hooping, man. I mean, threw for 250 against Georgia in a tough game for the Longhorns, but, like, I left that game saying, all right, if that's a Kirby and Glenn Schumann defense for the Dogs, and Arch looks comfortable against that, he's seeing it against that, okay, I mean, I don't know if it's, a moral victory, but it's not a negative data point in my mind with all the drops that he had to deal with in that spot. The speed that Texas has in the receiver room, specifically a one Ryan Wingo has, there is potential there for them to give A&M some issues on the back end. A&M is good by the numbers. I keep saying this, but A&M over the course of this season has had some leakage on the back end. All right? It is not a fortress of a secondary. They've had explosive plays given up through the air in every single SEC game they've played. So you're looking at Mississippi State, and as poor a year as it has been for the folks in Stark Vegas relative to what A&M's doing, there's not a world where Texas can't recreate that. It's not a world where Texas is going to struggle through the air. Like, I think that's very much so on the table in this spot for Texas. And if that happens now, because Sark's going to cook something up. Sark's been eyeing this game. He's ready for this game. He's going to empty the freaking clip, because why the heck would you not if you're Texas staring down the barrel of being 3 losses already? There's a world where Marcel Reed and the boys got to chase points in DKR. There's a world where they may be on their heels, and Colin Klein and the guys are trying to recalibrate in the second half and try to find a way to chase Arch Manning and the guys. And if that happens now, that Texas defense, as much as they've struggled over the course of the last couple of weeks, there's still a lot of personnel on that side of the football that can make it very difficult if you're a one-dimensional offense. Again, chasing points because Arch and Wingo and Sark and the Texas outfit got the jump on you at home in a rivalry spot. Just keep an eye on that. It's not being talked about enough, in my opinion. Now, I think also on the other side of this, I don't think we're talking nearly enough about how ideal Texas A&M's scheme is against Texas's defensive personnel. Because we talked about Colin Simmons during the preview, and we should have. It would have been malpractice if we didn't talk about Colin Simmons or Anthony Hill or what that front seven can do for you against this Texas A&M offense. Texas is top 3 in college football in yards per carry allowed as a rush unit. They do a great job getting after the quarterback. But with that being said, what does Texas A&M do a lot of? Put the ball in the perimeter, do a lot of read option stuff with Marcel Reed, get the ball out of his hands quickly. All of those things to me say, Colin Simmons, you're not going to have a lot of chance to rush the passer here. Colin Simmons, we're not going to try to block you, brother. We're just going to read you. We're going to read you in the inverted veer stuff and the jet sweep stuff. And as much as you want to, try and wreak havoc, maybe there's some plays where you'll get us, but for the most part, we're not going to let you take over this game because we're going to try to block you. We're just going to read you. And then whatever you do, you're wrong. You want to crash on the dive? Cool, we'll pull it. You want to try to play the dive? Cool, Marcel Reed will get outside. All those things, I think, for Texas A&M need to be mentioned out loud. I also want to say, like, A&M, they're top 15 in America when it comes to their sack rate allowed. Again, going back to this, they get the football out of Marcel Reed's hands quickly. It's not 3 steps in a hitch, let 4 verts develop downfield. They'll do some of that for sure, but that's not really their bread and butter. So again, Colin Simmons, Anthony Hill, you're not going to have a ton of time to try to rush Marcel Reed because it's 1-2 balls out. Like, I would imagine right around 2 seconds is probably what they're aiming for in College Station. So last thought here, not being talked about nearly enough, it's a rivalry game. Things get weird. This game being a 2.5-point spread favoring A&M in some ways also maybe feels a little bit weird for you. If you're an A&M fan, you're like, 2.5, that's it? Special teams may determine this thing. If you've watched our preview, I think it comes down to a walk-off field goal. You're looking at the return men in this game. Ryan Niblett, he's won Texas, 2 games? Red River in Kentucky, or at least had a very heavy hand in winning those 2 games. Who's to say Ryan Niblett in a 2.5-point spread kind of game that just slightly favors the away team, who's to say he doesn't flip that spread on its head and finds a way to will Texas to some advantageous scoring positions and it puts A&M in a tough spot if Texas can't score like that? That whole field position flipping possibility for Texas, that could be the difference here, because it has been here multiple times over the course of their season. Now for A&M, Terry Bussey very quietly second in the SEC in return yards. Casey Concepcion, if you watched him this year, you know he's a big play waiting to happen, especially in the return game. Who's to say maybe it's a close game in the fourth quarter? Texas is foolish enough to kick it to Concepcion. He houses one, game blouses. That's how it went down. Hey, we did a great job against Marcel Reed. We kept him from setting his feet. Arch had a good day, but we kicked to Concepcion. We kicked it to Bussy. They housed one of them. We lost by a touchdown. Again, the spread is telling you it's going to be a very tight game. And in tight games, it comes down to special teams a lot of the time. Now, Randy Bond, A&M's kicker, we appreciate kickers on this show. We're not an anti-kicker outfit. We understand you got a hard job, but Randy Bond is 61% on the year when it comes to his kicking game. In a game that's essentially a field goal spread, I don't love the way that feels if I'm A&M. On the other side, Mason Shipley for Texas, right on 80%. He's 1 for 4, though, from 50+. Does that matter? How much do you dock your kicker for missing from more than 50+? I mean, I don't know if you can be all that critical. Just something to think about. If it's coming down to the wire and either of these teams had to kick a field goal, just something to maybe sleep a little bit more uneasy at night for both sides of this thing. Special teams will play a role in finishing this game for both sides, mark my words. And it's not being talked about nearly enough for my money, all right?